Caroline Woolley, you're a Managing Director at Marsh, an insurance specialist. Thanks for joining us here at Base. We've heard a lot of really interesting issues, particularly in your panel session recently about fresh thinking around the ideas of live, work and move. What are for you are the challenges for, I suppose, sustainably developing major cities like London?
It's the collaboration piece, I think. You know, it's essential. You can't look at any one of those in isolation, really, because they're naturally integrated. We have to look at the way people move and the use of capacity that's actually in the transportation systems at the moment by encouraging work and business to adopt more flexible working patterns. So we can use this, everyone's not going to the office for 9 o'clock, but the use of technology as well. So the use of technology allows some working from home, working out of the office, video conferencing. You know, we really have to embrace that technology.
So that's really being driven by employers.
It is, and it's business in the community. I mentioned that's a Prince's Trust charity which we support, and we're looking really at the Business Emergency Recovery Group, BERG, but it's all part of the business being in the community and the fact that the business relies on the local infrastructure. And particularly in London, I mentioned about brain business, you know, it's the service business and particularly financial services. So we're looking at how we work with the people, and the people being one of the biggest assets. So you do have to think about where they live and how they move around the city. So it's looking at different ways of this integration and collaboration, but businesses are operating within that local community, and I was really looking at the risks that they face.
Well, what role does the Mayor's office play, for instance, in driving that kind of thinking, driving and helping employers to change the way that their working patterns are established?
Well, I think, again, it's the collaboration. It's looking at the big picture. It's not having the blinkers on and looking at any of these particular issues or challenges in isolation. It's looking at that big picture, everyone working together from a public and private sector perspective. That's the essential. The collaboration is the key piece, but changing the time horizons. You know, we mentioned about that. It's not looking at the short term. Now, businesses are in the business of making profit, you know, that's natural. So they do tend to have this short-term view. What the government needs to do is work with businesses to take a longer view, not just in terms of their own profitability, but really the areas and the infrastructure that they rely on, and having them be involved in some of those decisions. And then I think that will be the key. You
talked a lot about the need for businesses to manage the risks that are associated with, I suppose, the changing future. And I suppose there's a lot to talk about technology and the way that technology actually drives businesses of the future. Do you think businesses are embracing those risks at the moment? Are they understanding that the risks that they are there in a changing environment, in a changing business environment?
I think they are. I mean, particularly larger businesses that have the advantage of having a risk manager. You know, there's a recognition that a lot of these risks are not just side risks. They're core to the overall business. And this is where we bring in climate change issues, for example. You know, if you're using water in your production processes, you have to think about how you're going to use that.
Future-proofing your business, future-proofing your city.
It's a future-proof piece, but it does come back to the horizon. So we need to look at that longer horizon, both in terms of the live and travel, but really work, and getting businesses to really adopt that long horizon so that they can think about future-proofing their business, but also the community in which they're operating. So it's the thinking about risks such as climate change, but also it's all these global risks that I said no company operates in isolation. They are relying on the local infrastructure, but because of the complex web of suppliers and customers that they operate within, that's such a long value chain that does usually span the globe. Even the smallest of businesses are relying on different parts of the world. So they do have all of these large global events do have an indirect impact on these businesses. So it's thinking about the direct impact of local risks. Mm-hmm. And as I said, natural catastrophes used to be something that you think about happening on the other side of the world. But flooding, of course, is common in the UK.
We're here talking about fresh thinking, we're talking about ideas for sustainable development in the cities such as London. Do you think we are, as businesses, thinking and having the right kind of visions, the right long-term visions for the way that our cities will be developing?
I think there's some work to do in the collaboration and the vision of businesses particularly. But in terms of managing risks, I talked about it's not actually just about survival. You don't want to just survive, it's actually thriving in this environment. So that's what we're encouraging, the fact that businesses should be prepared for whatever is thrown at them. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't predict what the next big event will be, but we can look at how a business, how nimble a business is and how flexible it is.
It's about being positive about how you can maximise the benefit.
Yeah, deal with whatever event is thrown at them. So it's this idea of preparation, it's about prevention, but also protection, and that's where I brought the insurance piece in. Because who's going to pay in a crisis? Where are the funds going to come from? You don't want to go cap in hand to the government. It's actually saying, right, I can be self-sufficient. It's making sure that the insurance is in place. So if something does happen, I'm not just protecting my assets, but I'm also protecting cash flow and profit so that the business can survive.
You talked earlier about protecting assets, asset protection. I mean, how do you see that going forward? Is that going to be a critical issue for businesses in London?
It is. I mean, I remember a number of years ago actually with Boris talking at one of the base conferences, talking about refit and retrofit, not just about new build, and it was divided into a couple of areas. But actually you have to think about buildings and businesses that are destroyed by fire or flood or many other examples. And actually we don't want to just replace like with like, which is the way standard insurance works. We want to make buildings more resilient, we want to make them future-proof, but actually more environmentally friendly. And there are clauses that you can get in your policies, we just call them green building clauses, but it means that you can reinstate in a more environmentally friendly way and more resilient way, and that's included as part of the insurance. So we're encouraging people to think about sustainability and resilience, but in their day job. So I'm focusing mainly on property and business interruption insurance. So I have to think about, well, what can I do within my industry to help? And by encouraging resilient repairs and green building clauses, that's what I'm doing. So it's for each individual to think about their core business and what they're doing.
It's better for them, but also better for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, fascinating, huge challenges that we face, and they're certainly not going to get any less. When you mentioned climate change, you mentioned the challenges of population growth. So huge challenges, and we look forward to seeing the whole industry meet those challenges. So Caroline, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks very much.